Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you happen to find yourself in the world. My name is Carmen Mazzara, and I serve as Executive Director of APSIA, the Association of Professional Schools of International Affairs. We're so glad to see all of you here today as intrepid students at APSIA institutions. And in particular, I'm delighted to introduce you to Rudy Persing-Marino from the International Finance Corporation, who's going to be sharing their wonderful global internship program with us. This session is being recorded, so you will find it afterwards on APSIA's YouTube page. So if you miss anything, or if you have any questions, or just like spending more time with Rudy and his wisdom, it will all be online afterwards. He's going to do a short introduction, and then we will take your questions in the chat. If you have any technical issues along the way, you can feel free to direct message me at the APSIA office address. Otherwise, with great delight, I'm pleased to turn the floor over to Rudy Marino.
All right, thank you, Carmen. Appreciate the introduction. And I'd like to say, I feel like myself, I'm also part of APSIA. This is a fun group. Love to talk with all of you. I'm also an international student per se, originally from Brazil, came to study in the United States. Got my degree in international affairs and Latin American studies, focusing on international economics. Later on, ended up working now at World Bank Group, IFC, and I've been here for about 3 years now, so it's been a great place. And looking forward to meeting all of you, answering your questions, and I wish you a great career ahead. So with that, let's get started. Many of you, especially if you know anything about international affairs, you know about the World Bank Group. So I won't spend too much time introducing and explaining the group and what we are and what we do. No, we're based and headquartered in Washington, D.C., and we're 5 different separate institutions. The 2 institutions on the left deal mostly with governments, right? And IBRD is what most people think of when they think of World Bank, right? This is the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. It was really the first of the 5 institutions. And this lends money to the public sector, right? To governments. IDA works with the poorest of the poor in terms of governments, those that cannot repay loans or have a difficulty. For them, we provide interest-free loans and grants. MIGA, let's talk about IFC first. IFC, we take a different approach. Our approach is that, yes, there's just so much governments can do to reduce poverty around the world. IFC, we work with the private sector, right? We think the private sector brings a lot of solutions, and particularly in creating jobs and boosting exports and generating dividends and so on. The last 2 institutions, and by the way, I represent IFC here today. MIGA works with the multilateral investment. It's a multilateral investment guarantee agency, and they provide like insurance to investors who are looking to invest in emerging markets, countries that perhaps may have a lot of political risk. So investors are afraid to put their dollars in there or euros. For example, Argentina at the moment, MIGA provides a guarantee for their investments. And finally, ICSID is the smallest of the group. It is, just as the name suggests, a center for settlement of disputes. And again, they work very closely also with private sector and with public sector. So that's us, that's World Bank Group. To recap, these are our goals. There's just 2 of them, and we call them the twin goals. The first one is to end poverty. And when we say poverty, we really mean extreme poverty, which is defined as those who earn less than $1.90 per day. That today ends up being close to 734 million people, or close to about 10% of the population. Our goal is, in less than 10 years, to reduce that to about 3% or so of the population. Very, very lofty, very difficult goal, especially considering that we still have a pandemic going on, and that's increased poverty levels. And we're now facing a new situation too, geopolitically. We also are working, and it's not enough just to work with the poorest of the poor. We also work with the bottom 40% of the population, because in many cases, these people are also in a way in a risk because of catastrophe, perhaps an earthquake or a hurricane, may end up taking them to extreme poverty. So we work also with the bottom 40% of the population in different kinds of programs. So that's the goals of the World Bank Group and IFC. Now let's talk about what you are all interested in talking about today in our global internship program. Let me just give you a little bit of history. We've revamped what used to be our summer internship program 2 years ago and created this new global internship program. We've opened it to every single department at IFC and to every single one of our 100 plus offices. So now everyone can request interns. And it's not just during the North Hemispheric summer, it's also, I guess, the Southern Hemisphere winter. So with that said, what are the requirements? You must be a current master's degree student to participate in this program. And by current, we mean that you must not graduate also by the time of the internship. The time of the internship is usually May, June, July, August, and September. Now, we have multiple departments, right? So some departments may just want an intern from May, June, and July. Others may want an intern from June all the way to September. So do pay attention. In every single job description, the terms of reference will say which month specifically you will have the internship for. But the idea is that you do not graduate in May. Otherwise, it would kind of go against the spirit of the program, which is that you come having an amazing experience with us, and then take that knowledge back to your school, complete your coursework, and finally, once you graduate, you can then consider coming back to us. So ideally, we're looking for people who do not graduate prior to December 1st, 2022. The application period opened on Monday, February 7th, and closes next week on Monday, March 7th. So you will have up until Monday, March 7th, it ends up being like 8:59 p.m. Eastern time to submit your application. So not midnight. So do keep that in consideration. Now, if you, once you apply, you can apply to up to 3 positions. And my team will be reviewing every single application. We don't have a computer system and AI that is reviewing all the applications. We have physical people who are reading every single resume and cover letter and creating a long list, right? And that long list we then share to the departments, and then departments get to review our long list and choose who they want to interview. They may choose to interview 2, 3, 4, or so on, number of people. If you're called for an interview, you may be called anywhere between March 21st and April 29th. Why such a huge range? Because each department is different. They may be busy in March, maybe less busy in April. So that's why we give a range of when they can conduct these interviews. But if you're selected, you'll get your contract in May. And I should say that all our internships are paid and paid quite well. Now, in summary, or global internship program, you may have seen the positions already advertised on the website. If not, it's this link right here at the bottom, ifc.org/internship. We have 60 plus opportunities this year, and some of them actually require more than 1 intern. So we request a total of 70 interns to join us. In terms of locations, there's 22 separate locations around the world. So it's not just headquarters, Washington, D.C., it's really multiple offices. And many of these opportunities say they're open for a virtual internship. Now, what do I mean by virtual internship? That means that, let's say, the internship is based here in Washington, D.C., but you're located in, let's say, Bogota, Colombia, right? You can do the internship from Bogota, Colombia, and do it virtually. And this is also mainly because many of our offices are still closed due to the pandemic, right? So we wanted to give, instead of saying we're not going to have internships this year, we wanted to give an option so that people could attend, be part of our internship program for wherever they are, as long as they're close to the time zone. Now, I wanted to summarize also the languages. We have 16 requests for French speakers, and I know this is a very international group, so anyone who speaks French, look for those positions. We have 13 for Spanish, 4 requests for Arabic, 3 for Russian, and 1 for Chinese/Bahasa. Now, what I've done is to make things a little simpler for you. We had initially just listed all 60 opportunities on the website, but it's a little too much to digest. So I've kind of separated and grouped them together here so that you can kind of understand what they entail. So many of them, I would say that they have to do with country strategy, right? So what are the tasks? They have to do with providing intelligence and data on specific sectors that IFC could support in order to increase private sector investments. So what kind of skills are we looking for these types of roles? Usually market research, visualization tools. I think these are roles that perhaps any of you would be interested in doing, especially if you've done any market research in the past, right? Take a look at these positions and feel free to apply. I've grouped a bunch of positions together in what we call research and data analytics. And this has to do with applying deep learning techniques for data analysis and comprehension. The kind of skills we're looking for this type of positions have to do with data analytics, right? So Tableau, Python, Power BI, regression analysis. If any of you have like an economics background, these are really good positions also to look to apply, okay? So moving on. Branding and communications. Again, here, we're looking for people to help us with social media campaigns, publications, putting content up in our website. So anyone that has some sort of skills in graphic design, in digital media creation, if you're really good with social media, these are some positions that you may consider as you're applying. Remember, you can apply up to 3, so you may want to throw your hat in one of these if you want. Now, the bulk of our positions are within operations, right? This is what we do the most. And in here, you will be working on identifying leads and future investment opportunities, right? So the kind of skills usually we require for this are financial modeling, again, market research, and performing due diligence. So this is the list of positions. Notice on the right side, I put number of interns, and you can see some of them require more than 1 intern for the role. I've grouped a number of positions here as finance. So anyone that has a good background in accounting per se may want to take a look at this. But here we're looking to usually build budget reports, track usage of project funding, monitor resource allocations. These 3 positions are good ones. If you have strong skills in Excel, in Tableau, and data management, this would be great positions for you to apply. We have some positions in human resources. So these are actually fun positions too, all based in Washington, D.C., mostly conducting some sort of research and designing presentations and reports. Here, really what we're looking for is for people with problem-solving skills. So if you have good problem-solving skills, take a look at these positions. I mean, I came from an international affairs background. I never thought of doing human resources in my life, but here I am doing recruitment, and I love it. I enjoy it so much. Then I've also grouped together, again, for the French speakers, here's the group of positions that require French. If you want, you can do a quick screenshot. I know this session is being recorded, just so you know which positions are available for French speakers. And I should state that it says French. French is a preference. It's not a requirement. So if you see one of those positions, maybe your French is not as strong, or maybe you really like the kind of job, go for it, apply. Same thing with the Spanish speakers. Ideally, it's good that you speak Spanish, but if you don't, it's okay. If you think the position is good for you, go ahead and apply. And finally, I have no shame, so I will share the positions that so far have least applicants. So in a way, if you want to think about it, this may have, maybe the positions you may have a higher chance of getting selected. So maybe on the 3 positions that you apply, maybe you want to put your name in the hat for one of this. So the first 2 have to do with helping with social media. The market mapping Levant has to do with searching for firms, I guess in the Egypt region that have to do with agriculture or manufacturing, right? And doing a good analysis of market there. This JP33, maybe some of you have heard that the world has moved from this index called LIBOR to something called SOFR. Many of our loans in the past worth billions of dollars have been made using LIBOR as an index. We need to redo or replan all those and move and transition them to SOFR. So it's a lot of great work. You would become a niche expert in SOFR if you run for this. Trade and supply chain analysis, it's a fantastic opportunity to, if you're interested in supply chain, this is a very unique time in the world where supply chains are being disrupted and there's a lot of work to be done here. GIP54, really, we're looking for how to promote climate risk to banks, right? So banks don't really think of climate risk as something that's important. We need to be able to promote that to them so that they can get to understand and incorporate in their loans, if you will. And finally, the GIP58, country-driven budgeting approach implementation. This, for this, we're looking for people that can kind of see what we've done in some of our loans in certain countries and how that new budgeting approach can be used in other places and what lessons we can learn from it. So anyways, these are the positions. I'm looking forward to answering your questions and getting to know you. So I will stop sharing now so that I can also see your faces. Thank you.
Our first question actually goes back to one of those positions that had fewer applications. And folks are wondering particularly about that GIP 33 and what skills would be needed for a role like that.
You may think that I remember all of them by heart what GIP 33 was, but can you remind me? I think this was the...
I think that was the LIBOR to SOFR conversion.
Okay, got it. So for that position, we are looking for really, I think people that kind of understand a little bit of the financing of the world, right? If you understand a little bit about how LIBOR used to work and what were the challenges with LIBOR, if you can explain that on an interview, I think you're way ahead of many candidates. And you know, a lot of it has to do with how it was measured and you know, and why it was prone to manipulation by some market holders, right? If you remember your news. So if you're curious and want to learn more, I think that would be a great position. Again, just a little bit of a background, maybe in some finance, but you don't have to be an expert.
No, members would never try to make their numbers look better in a public sphere. Are you kidding? So one other question about a student who's already applied to 3 positions. They're specifically wondering if then they can apply to some of the the ones that have fewer applicants. But I'm curious whether, because you're reading every application by hand, you might sift candidates around. If someone applies for a position and you think, oh, they'd be a better fit over there. Does that happen in the course of the process?
I've done that, actually. As I'm reviewing people, I may find someone that is a Singapore national, for instance. And there's some really great, there's 2 opportunities for Singapore nationals, JP15 and JP30, where they're actually looking to hire someone from Singapore because that office has you know, a goal of actually hiring more Singaporeans. So I tend to see, if I see a CV that's good, I tend to write to the candidate and say, hey, you know, I just found your CV. Would you consider also applying for this other GIP 15 or 30? So we're also proactively doing that. Again, one of those advantages of actually reviewing every application manually.
And absolutely. One of our students, unfortunately, doesn't qualify for this internship program because she graduates in May of 22. Okay. Are there other onboarding programs for students who might be ineligible due to timing?
You know, let me just present this idea. We are, my team, we're launching this this case study competition later this month. And this is going to be a case study competition open to all master's degrees around the world. And if you've watched the show Shark Tank, it's very similar, right? In a scenario, we have like fictionally $50 to $100 million. And we're opening up to any projects you may have, any ideas you may have that will help reduce poverty around the world. And we're looking for those submissions. It's going to be really a competition between schools, so it should be really fun. It will go through different rounds. It will go through, a round that looks at the environmental and social risks. It will go through a round that looks at some of the components of how does it actually create an impact, reduce poverty. The final round goes up to our directors and VPs. So it'll be really fun. We'll be launching it later this month. But if you want to take a sneak peek, the website is ifc.org/challenge. So before you launch, you may actually take a look and see what it's going to look like, since we already have started working on it. But yeah, so that would be something really cool. The thing that we have as an award is the winning team may be able to get fellowships with those departments, right? So that would be a really cool way for you to get involved and enter IFC. We also have consultancies, so take a look at our consultancies. An easy, quick way also to get involved in the IFC World Bank Group.
Great, thank you. What, in looking at the technical requirements for different positions, it looks like some of them specifically ask for Tableau. For our students who are well versed in something like R, is that transferable, particularly if they're willing to learn Tableau? How did those kinds of specific requirements translate into other things?
I think so. I mean, I taught myself Tableau too, and it's not a difficult to learn program. As a matter of fact, if you're learning it, put it on your CV already. You can always, from here until when you get interviewed, perfect your skills and improve them. So yeah, I think a lot of those skills are transferable. But look for the TOR and what the TOR is asking for. So if they do say Tableau specifically, they probably want to see Tableau specifically in your resume. They might not transfer the skills in their heads.
But even a very preliminary entry-level knowledge of Tableau might be
That's
a
fine.
beginning. Okay, great.
Yeah, I think so.
And you so kindly grouped all of the positions into broad buckets. Was there any particular role for those who are more technology specialists or technology inclined?
Yes, we have 3 positions with what we call CIT. By the way, so I apologize for the acronyms. We are an acronym soup here at the World Bank Group. But if you see CIT in the front of the position listing, that means it's with our IT department. So if you're technology driven, technology focused, take a look at those 3 positions.
Excellent. One of the students is curious about some of the work requirements that might go into being in a position. If a position says that you have to have 3 years of relevant experience, is that typically a requirement, and what would count as relevant and what would count as experience?
Fair question. Okay, so we are counting every experience, right? So if you have, for instance, worked for 2 years and you've done a couple of internships here and there, and if you add that up, you get close to 3 years, we're definitely looking at you. We're definitely considering you. So even if you have a little less than 3 years, go ahead and apply, right? Again, we'll take a look at every single application, and it may be that maybe we may want to include you based on what you've done and your passion and your interests.
Could you unpack a little bit more the process once students get selected for an interview? How many rounds do they typically have, and who are some of the decision makers?
Yeah, so I think at the internship level, usually you'll just see one round of interviews. I could only foresee the case of having more than one interview if we have teams that are, separate. So for example, we may have someone that's in Washington, they can interview today, but then we have a couple of folks that are in our Hong Kong office, right? And they can only interview you a few days from today. That's why you would get 2 different interviews. Most likely, everyone will interview you together just once. So you can expect that. Now, for each one of our positions, you will be interviewed by the person who will be the team lead, and that will kind of mentor you through the whole process, right? So there will be one person that will be your first and main point of contact from that point forward. I should add the internships, the way we've designed them, it's very cool. We've said, okay, department, tell us, what's the main task that the intern is going to be doing? okay? And then we've also asked for a secondary or a shadow project, right? So, okay, you'll be doing this first task, but we also want the interns to learn something else, something different, something cool, just learn more, get to meet more people. So give us something else that they can be doing just as a shadow project, just so that they can maybe attend meetings, just so they can learn something new. So that's actually included in every single one of our internships, and I think it offers a lot more. Now, something else that we've done when we've revamped the program is that we've included a thing where we have biweekly meetings. And in these biweekly meetings, we meet with all the interns. We connect from all over the world. We tend to invite some of our business leaders to come and speak about what they do and what their department does. So in the past, we've invited Treasury, who can kind of explain us, how IFC finances itself. And it's very interesting, very cool for interns to get to learn and meet other people. We've also included a training aspect to it. So if you get selected for our internship program, you get access to our top trainings, and we have a really cool menu that we've choose that include things like project cycle. How does the project cycle within the World Bank Group work? And this is super interesting because you'll get to understand how our project cycle works. So think of it this way: in the future, once you graduate, and you apply, right? And someone like me or someone else is reviewing your resume, and they're reviewing a resume of someone that's almost the same as you. However, you have this project cycle training that you've taken, and so you'll understand. Most likely, they'll get to interview you. So that's what we thought when we wanted to do the trainings as well that are available for interns. There's one final aspect that I should probably mention, is that the director for the Young Professionals program, the YP, that we have, the young professionals, also sits in our group that's reviewing the applications for the Global Internship Program. The reason being that it happens that many of our interns then later apply to the Young Professionals program, right? So as a matter of fact, last year, about 10% or so got selected to the finals. So of the finalists for the Young Professionals program, 10% were former interns. So that's pretty good. And if you do your internship well, you have a recommendation from your manager, you will automatically be placed on the long list for the YP. So that's another added benefit.
That's very encouraging. And I love the added training that can be so transferable to lots of different spaces and places.
Right.
We have several questions about the networking aspect of an application. Do you encourage students to reach out to the team that they're applying to? Do you encourage students to seek you out and reach out to you? How much personal contact is good and how much is just way too far?
Yeah, well, right now I am just have no capacity to reach people or talk with anyone. I'm getting hundreds of messages on LinkedIn, and unfortunately I cannot respond to all of them. However, in terms of networking, if you do happen to have or know someone, I think it's useful to get to learn a little more, right? So if you're networking, your purpose of networking is not to try to convince that person to tell someone to hire you. Instead, it should really be to learn as much as possible about what IFC does, and particularly what maybe that department is looking as its deliverables, right? I think that could be useful. But if you have someone that that can kind of give you that guidance. If you don't know anyone, you're just blanketing some random person, they may not respond, or they may. It depends. Usually, I looked on LinkedIn, and I can see, if I'm connected with someone, maybe that someone can connect me to that person. It's an option, but I can't guarantee that anyone will respond.
Somewhere all of my colleagues who are career services professionals are nodding vigorously. Please don't just blanket every World Bank or IFC email you can find. And I also encourage all of you to think about your alumni office as well. So many of our schools have great alum who are currently at all parts of the bank group who can give you that kind of insider information without needing to stalk cold calls and random strangers.
That's true. Actually, the alumni offices, they do have a way to reach me because they know my email address, and they're like, Rudy, I have this really great student. Can you speak with them? I say, okay, fine. But they also know other people, so they're very good at that.
I didn't mean to harass you. I meant to harass other graduates of their programs.
Yes.
So we had a specific question about some of the ESG and climate internships,
Great.
but it's linked to, again, those technical skills and expertise that students should have. What does the term technical support mean in those job descriptions, especially the ESG ones? And how does that relate to some of the tools students might need to use?
That's fair. I mean, I don't know exactly if it says technical support, what does that really mean? But I think what any team is looking for is to kind of have the fresh ideas. I mean, think of it this way. You guys have something to offer us. It's not just us having something to offer you. You as a student know the latest about ESG and environment. There's a lot you can offer in terms of skills, in terms of research you've done. And I think that's what departments want, right? That's why we have an internship program, really to kind of have that exchange. So if you think about it that way, some of those technical skills are really understanding that. And I can give you a really good example of something that's new that happens, and maybe we're going to be involved furthermore in the future. Last year, at the end of last year, there was this Paris Agreement that was signed, and because we were part of the agreement as well, signatories, we also have to comply. Now, what does that mean for our loans, right? We have to rethink. There's many things we need to adapt. So this is what we have to put into practice, right? There is not necessarily a textbook solution that's being taught in schools, but really have rely on people that have the knowledge and have some ideas that can help us implement them. So that's an example.
That's great. Another translation request from a student. The difference between research experience, particularly because ours are students, and market research. How are they the same? Are they similar skills? If one has a lot of academic research experience, is there a good way to translate to showcase a position that's in the market?
It's lingo. I would say market research is Wall Street lingo for research, honestly. But I think when they say market research, they tend to focus on private sector, right? We are a private sector. We are the largest private sector development institution in the world. And when we're talking about market research, we talk about, okay, can you help us find the market for electric vehicles in Western Africa, right? So if I were to do that kind of research, I would look, okay, electric vehicles in Western Africa, looks like most of them are buses, right? The buses that are switching from petrol to other renewable sources. Maybe working with those companies, with the bus companies or with the governments, municipalities, maybe that's a market that ISC can help support and grow, right? So that would be an idea for market research that helps.
Thank you. And that's a great expansion for my next question. I'm sure you read thousands of cover letters. Are there things that clearly, no, you just skim them?
No, I just look at the resumes I read.
Well, actually, that's a great point. So some folks are going to look at the resume, some folks are going to look at the cover letter. Do you have advice for how students can stand out in a good way as they put those materials together for you? And do you have any advice on things they should absolutely avoid?
Yeah, and okay, and I should state to clarify this better. I just read resumes because mostly I just do the long listing, right? So once I find a good pool of people, and usually that ends up being maybe 10% of those that applied, and I send those forward. Usually, then the hiring teams are getting this list of the 10%, top 10% that have applied, and they're taking more time to review cover letters, right? So I may not look at cover letters, but they will, or they most likely will. So for cover letters, I think what you want to state are maybe 2-3 things that they should pay attention in your resume. And that's about it. The other thing I think, because we are World Bank Group and it's important for us, it's really your passion for development, right? How do you relate to development? And I say this because we hire a lot of bankers too. And these bankers from Wall Street, they're only in their mind, all they want to do is maximize profit, including for themselves, right? So they have no idea that, maybe we're working with emerging markets, and, the way uh, things work in Wall Street are not the way things will work in Kinshasa or Brazzaville, right? So I think connecting, or at least explaining, your passion for development um, will make a difference, because everyone who works at IFC, at World Bank Group, has that. As a matter of fact, I can also say that most of our interviews, they will have one question that has to do with that. Really, what is your motivation? Why really do you want to work here? Um, and we want to hear it.
And I would guess that for an IFC specific application, it's marrying the private sector and development as distinct from IBRD and some of the others as well.
Correct. Yes.
Great. I know a lot of international institutions have country preferences for various nationals. And you talked a little bit about the Singapore example where they were specifically looking for Singaporean nationals. Does that apply for the internship, for most of the internship positions? And should students who are maybe dual nationals or from very large countries cater their applications in a different way?
Smart. Yes, actually. Be smart about, especially if you're dual national, there's some nationalities you can use to your advantage within IFC World Bank Group, because we don't have that many members of that nationality. One that's very common that we look to, whenever we see an application for instance, from someone from Japan or Switzerland, we tend to stop and pay attention a little longer. The reason being because, for instance, Japan is one of those members that is actually the second largest shareholder of IFC, and there's not many Japanese people that work at IFC. So we want to make sure, okay, maybe here's an opportunity for someone who's Japanese, or similar thing with Swiss. They're very, very involved with our funds. And there's just not much representation. So if you're of any of those two nationalities, that could be to your advantage. Now, let's say you're applying for a position in Bogota, Colombia, right? And our offices there are partially open right now. And we have a really good application from someone in Colombia, and maybe there's someone else who applied who is interested, but they are located in Argentina. Both of them will be considered. Perhaps the office in Bogota may want to interview and talk with the person that's in Colombia, because there's a chance they may actually come to the office. So it depends. I can't say there's going to be 100% a preference for someone that's in the country already, because like I said, 86% of those people have said virtual is okay. So people can be anywhere.
Thank you.
Last year we had a guy who actually he was from France, and he ended up getting an internship for work in Madagascar, but he was studying in the United States. But because of COVID, he was able to travel to France and then do the internship from France virtually for the country office in Madagascar. So things like that are possible.
I love the global connectedness of it. Two last questions for me. And again, folks, we have a little bit more time, so feel free to put stuff in the chat. We've talked a lot about the technical skills, R and Tableau and research. What are the intangible skills that you're looking for students to have as they apply? And what are some good ways they can bring those forward in an application, other than saying, I am good with Teams, or very generic, bland things like that?
I'm going to say something that is kind of a joke within IFC. Some people ask, what does IFC stand for? And you would say, oh, International Finance Corporation. And they'll say, no, actually it stands for I'm forever changing. And it's kind of an inside joke of the institution itself, but it rings a little truth, right? There's always changes. We're a global institution. There's things happening. We have, for instance, offices in Ukraine and Russia, and we're having to evacuate people. Our priorities change because of things happening around us. We had a new managing director that came a couple of years back, and he changed the way the org structure was. So there's always changes. And I think what's something intangible that people can bring and offer is really being flexible, right? Expect that things may not be perfectly scripted, We're a big institution, but things sometimes are decided on the go. And if you're flexible, if you can think on your feet, I think you'll do well. If you expect everything to be told to you and you just want to follow things by the book, you may struggle a little bit.
That's good advice for life as well as for your IFC internship. We have one other question from an international student who is, or from a non-US student who's studying in the States, and they're curious about visa sponsorship. And I would ask similarly about the student who was in France and working remotely in Madagascar and how all of that plays out on the global level.
Cool. All right. So let's say you are in the States, right? And you're studying and you have an F1 student visa. You can use your F1 student visa to work with us, and we'll take it. If, for instance, you're working perhaps elsewhere, like that case of that student, he was clearly on an F1 student visa, wanted to work in Madagascar. However, things in Madagascar are not so quick as they may be perhaps in other countries. For us to be able to get a visa for that student to go to Madagascar during a COVID era scenario was very hard. So because we were able to do it virtually last year, he was able to be flexible, right? And do his internship in a closer time zone so he could report to his team and participate in meetings virtually. And that's the way we adapted. So do keep that in mind. I think the internships are very short in nature, so that if you're not from the country or in the country itself, we may not be able to request a visa for you because it's just not practically possible. Unless the internship is very long, it runs from May to September, and the department is really interested and keen to do it. It is possible, but it's not a guarantee.
Thank you. Not seeing any other questions in the chat. My last question for you, Rudy, is again, as somebody who reads so many of these, any final parting advice for students to really help them shine in their applications? I know that the deadline is Monday, but they still have a little bit of time to really craft something that's going to get your attention. And how can they best do that?
Yes, work on your resume. I think resumes, for some reason, a lot of business schools, career advisors tell people, oh, you should only keep your resume to one page. I say nonsense. If you have a master's degree or 10 years of experience, you should go for a second page, right? You have a lot more to tell us. And I would say a majority of the resumes we get are 2 to 3 pages. So try to aim for that. Name a lot of, if you've worked internationally, let's say you've worked in Asia, don't just say worked in Asia. Actually name the countries that you've worked in Asia. If you've worked on, let's say, monitoring a project in Senegal, don't just say, worked on monitoring a project in Senegal. Actually give me the dollar amount of how big that project was, who was funding it. That's interesting to me. So keep that in mind. Look for the TORs, the terms of reference. Circle or highlight those keywords that you think are important. Make sure those keywords find their way into your resume. So that's all my advice.
Excellent. Details and catering to your actual reader and audience. Such great points.
Yes.
Thank you everyone so much for being here and being a part of this conversation. And thank you to Rudy and the IFC for having this wonderful opportunity. We look forward to filling your inbox with amazing applicants from APSIA students. And to all of our students, as I've said, the recording, if you need to revisit these tips while you put your application together, will be up on our YouTube page soon. And we look forward to seeing you at future APSIA webinars. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, Carmen.